We've talked a lot about oil, but it's been whipsawed a lot, so it's hard to get an idea of really kind of how this meeting we think is going to end. Nevertheless, when you're plugging numbers into your models, trying to figure out particularly things like the dollar and where it goes from here, what are you predicting? What are you expecting? What are your guys, commodity guys, telling you about where oil goes next?
Well, we're fairly bearish. We tend to think that oversupply is going to continue here, so we're not looking for much of an agreement to come out. So we do get a lot of headlines suggesting there may be supply limitations going forward, but we just don't think that's going to happen when you look at all the individual countries. So if you have a fairly bearish outlook as far as oil is concerned, the key point we would highlight there is, well, there's an inflation impact globally, but back to FX, gets to some of the commodity currencies, Norway and Canada are going to suffer, but also I think by association some of the other commodity currencies, so potentially the Australian dollar going forward as well, even though oil is not the key driver there.
This morning.
Exactly. But it tends to be correlated over the iron ore, which is Australia's biggest export, tends to be correlated over a longer period. But it's interesting, you mentioned this morning, equities is also a key driver for Aussie at the moment, something we're seeing in our models. Australia is trading much more like a risk-on, risk-off currency rather than a commodity currency in the current market.
That's interesting.
And talk to us about the Canadian dollar we were just looking at there. Is that now more politically risk-exposed or more commodity-exposed? Where do you make the balance now as we ramp up towards the US election?
Well, this is a key point. We're relatively bearish on the outlook for the Canadian dollar, which is consistent with the oil view. But the point here is that it does tend to be driven by the US side as well. If we're right, and ultimately we do get a Fed rate hike in December, we don't think the Canadians will follow with that. So if that does get priced in, and it's not going to happen anytime soon, I think as we go towards the end of the year, we will see the US dollar pick up, and most likely against the Canadian dollar. But as I said, I think that's going to take a while. In the short term, we've just had a Fed decision where nothing happened. Interest rates and real interest rates in the US are low. I think the US dollar is going to suffer.